Hello and welcome to Saurabh Sir's classes. We move to question number 23 in the ZAC paper. This is a paragraph about man's landing on moon for the first time on 20th July 1969. Now, as we all know, that was a great historic achievement where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin did land on the moon on that day. We also know that they were accompanied by another astronaut by the name Michael Collins, who did not land, but he was in the command module which was circulating the moon's orbit, and all of them went in the spacecraft by the name Apollo 11. Now we know all of that. We also know that it was a landmark achievement in the history of mankind, and Armstrong did say that very clearly after landing on the moon. He said that it might be a small step for a man like me, but it's a giant step for mankind. It opened up many areas of research. It answered many questions that were unanswered before that. So it was definitely a great achievement. Now the question is, having done this kind of an achievement and many more after that, we are not able to deal with many of the problems that we are facing today. And what are those problems? Cancer is one. We have not been able to find a cure for cancer even today. Climate change is another one. Global warming, we are unable to tackle global warming. Pollutions, we are not able to deal with pollution. Sustainable cities, we are not able to build sustainable cities, cities which can grow and sustain by themselves. We are not able to do that. So why are we not able to deal with these kind of problems? And the logical answer that comes to the mind is because these problems are more difficult to handle. Had it been easier, then we could have solved them easily. That is the logical conclusion from what we read. And now let's go to the questions. The question says, which of the following statements, if true, best communicates the intent of the paragraph? The intent of the paragraph is asking a question that since we have done a great thing like landing on the moon, why are we not able to deal with other problems? And the implicit answer is because they are more difficult. So let's see the options. The first option says, moonshot has a definitive ownership, whereas creating sustainable cities and curing cancer are public good problems. This is not told in the passage. It is nowhere told that people are not trying to solve cancer or building sustainable cities because they are public good problems or because they need an ownership. This is not the reason. So this is not the intent of the paragraph. Option B says, the reason we celebrate 1969 moonshot is precisely because nothing significant has been done in that domain since then. Absolutely not. We celebrate that day because it was a historic achievement and a landmark day in the history of mankind. It was a great event, so we celebrate that day. And to state that nothing significant has been done since then is very wrong. We had seen a lot of space research happening. We had seen spacecrafts being sent. Recently, India did send one, and many other countries are planning. We also have seen satellites being launched. So a lot of things have happened since 1969 in that space. So it is incorrect to state that nothing has happened. The third option says, America's moonshot was more about race to the moon and less about solving problems. Absolutely incorrect. It was also about solving problems because it did answer the questions of how to go to the moon, of how to navigate through space, and therefore it did solve all of those problems. So saying that it did not solve any problem is absolutely incorrect. And this is not the intent of the paragraph. The intent of the paragraph is to ask the question that having done this thing, why are we not able to do other things? So option C is incorrect. Option D says, America's moonshot was mainly a response to USSR's competing initiative, not at all relevant to, with the content of the paragraph. The paragraph doesn't talk about USSR at all, so irrelevant. Option E, this says the complexity of developing sustainable cities and curing cancer are far more than sending a human to the moon. Yes, this is the implicit inference from the passage that building sustainable cities, curing cancer, dealing with climate change, dealing with pollution, These things are more difficult than sending a person to the moon, and therefore we have not been able to do that. We have not been able to solve this problem till date. This is the reason. So option E is the intent of the passage, or in sync with the inference that we can draw from the passage. We go to the next question, which is question number 24. This one again talks about a particular instance of a politician who delivered a political speech during a political campaign, and then he's asked a very straightforward question by probably a reporter or a journalist that, hey, what will you do for the nation? And as usual, politicians never answer this kind of questions straightforward because they don't have an answer. They know that if they answer something and they'll get caught afterwards, so they'll immediately digress. And that's what he did. He immediately started, attacking. He said, look at my opponent. She is a female. What will she do? She can't even do anything. So why should people vote for her? Look at me. I'm going to tackle ISIS. I'm going to handle Pakistan. I'm going to fix the problem of terrorism. So look at it. For no good reason, he brought in ISIS. Why? We all know the answer. Because in India, you connect anything to Pakistan or you connect anything to Muslims, you become a nationalist. Because most of the voters think that way, that India is, quote unquote, a Hindu land, and therefore, only Hindus will reside here. And anyone who's a hater of Pakistan is considered to be a nationalist. So people will tend to vote for him, is what politicians think, especially BJP and RSS in particular. They think that anyone who is against Pakistan is a nationalist in India. So therefore they portray themselves as Pakistan haters, Muslim haters, and this is exactly what the politician is trying to do here. He's brought in the point of ISIS without any context to economy because he wants to make a very emotional connect with his voters, and he wants to tell them implicitly that, look, I hate Pakistan. I'm going to handle ISIS, I'm going to handle Pakistan. So therefore I'm a nationalist. So therefore you vote for me. So this is the logic that he's trying to build. This is the connect that he's trying to build with his voters and the appeal that he's trying to make. So let's go to the question. The question says, which of the following statements best describes the politician's intent? Now we understood the intent. Intent is to make an emotional pitch by bringing in ISIS, implicitly Pakistan, and not answering the question around the economy. So first option says to divert attention towards ISIS as compared to the economy. This is correct, absolutely correct, but is it the best reason? Why is he trying to do this? He definitely tried to do this, but the question is why? So let's move on and look at the other options. The second one says to digress and argue that security is more important than economy. This is not entirely correct. His intent of bringing in ISIS was not only security. It was a very clever move to bring in ISIS because people would immediately connect it back to Pakistan, and therefore an emotional connect develops there, and therefore they would think that he's a pro-Indian, hates Pakistan, hates Muslims, and he's a nationalist, and therefore we go with him. So he's not arguing that security is more important than economy. No, he's not talking about economy at all. Number C says to make a sexist remark and share his concern about an important issue. Now, he intentionally did make a sexist remark against his opponent, who is a woman, and he also showed his concern implicitly about security, which is connected to ISIS and Pakistan. But is this the best option, or is this the best reason of why he did that? Let's move on and look at the next option. To make an emotional appeal to the voters. Yes, this is what he's trying to do. Why did he bring in ISIS? He could have brought in, if he wanted to talk about security, he could have brought in many other points, like bringing in better ammunition for the army, strengthening the army base, vagera, vagera, vagera. So he could have explained a lot of those things which are more directly related to the security or the security forces of India rather than talking about ISIS, which is connected to Pakistan. So the reason why he brought in ISIS and did not talk about India's security arrangement, strategy, etc., is because he wanted to bring in that pseudo nationalism by connecting it back to Pakistan, which immediately rings a bell to in the minds of the voters. So emotional connect is the correct reason. So this is the most appropriate one. The last one says to appeal to the mature voters and use fear as a tool to lure voters. No, he's not trying to use fear as a tool. He's trying to use religion as a tool. He's trying to implicitly use Pakistan as a tool. And he's not appealing to the mature voters only. He's appealing to the entire set of voters. Pakistan rings a bell with the entire voter community. So that he knows that very well. So therefore, he brought in ISIS so that immediately people could connect to it and go with him. So emotional connect is the main reason. We move on to question number 25, which talks about global warming. Now, this is a very interesting topic. We all know that, global warming is happening in the earth globally, and temperatures of the earth is increasing by the day. We started recording all of this since the 1980s, and we have year-on-year reports that are published which shows that the temperatures of the earth is increasing on a year-to-year basis, especially on a long-term horizon. And the reason for it are manifold. One of it is depletion of the ozone layer. We all know that. And there are many other factors. Pollution increasing due to automobile pollution and industries, etc., etc., etc. So there are multiple reasons of global warming, but the fact remains that temperatures of the earth are increasing on a long-term basis. So that's point number one. Point number two that is told in the small para here is that in 2019, it is likely that the temperatures would hit an all-time high or near about that. And the reason is, apart from the long-term global warming effect, in 2019, there is a likelihood of El Nino effect. Now, El Nino is an event that occurs every 2 to 3 years. It is the warm temperature of the sea near Indonesia and Philippines. There are warm currents which develop, and those currents travel towards the coast of South America, and in the process, this current releases heat to the atmosphere, and thereby the temperatures of atmospheres rise even higher. So this happens in every 2 to 3 years, and the year in which it happens, it has a very profound effect on the overall temperatures around the world. So therefore, it is a very short-term phenomenon happening only after every 2 to 3 years and has an impact on the year in which it happens. Last time it happened was in 2015. Just for your information, it was one of the worst El Nino effects that we encountered globally, and temperatures soared. And it is also told in this passage that 2016 and 2017 were two of the hottest years on the earth. Now, this is what we understood from the passage, that there is a long-term global warming happening. In 2019, it is likely that temperatures would be high, probably all-time high, and it would be further increased because of El Nino possibility in 2019. Now, let's go to the question which says, which of the following statements can be best inferred based on the above paragraph? Now, inferred means it is not directly told, but can be concluded based on what we have seen or heard in the paragraph. So, what we can infer from this are few things. One is that we can definitely infer that the temperatures of the earth are increasing on a long-term horizon, and we can also infer that in the years that El Nino happens, it is slightly more because of that effect. And we can also infer that El Nino has nothing to do with the long-term increase in temperatures. It has a short-term effect in the year in which it happens. So these are the things that we can infer. So let's go to the options. Option A says a moderate El Nino event increases temperature more than a weak El Nino event. Now the paragraph is not comparing El Nino events at all, so this is not relevant. Option B says El Nino event causes global surface temperatures to rise. That's correct. In the long term, no. El Nino is a short-term phenomenon. It happens every 2 to 3 years. And it is very clearly said that in 2019 there's a likelihood of El Nino due to which temperatures might increase further only for that year. So definitely not long term. Option C says El Nino event did not affect temperatures in 2016 and 17. It is not told in the passage whether El Nino happened in 2016 and 17, so we cannot infer that directly. So this is also not inferable. Option D says global surface temperatures are increasing at a constant rate for 3 years. No, it is not told. It is just told that 2016 and 17 were two of the hottest years so far. That's it. Nothing else is told. So we cannot infer this. And option E, or the last option, says the long-term trend of global surface temperatures is unrelated to El Nino. Yes, this is what we can infer from the passage. It is clearly told that in 2019 there will be an El Nino effect due to which the temperatures might increase further just for that year. So El Nino is therefore a short-term phenomenon which doesn't have any relation to the long-term global warming happening due to many other factors. So option E is the correct choice, which can be inferred from the passage. We go to question number 26. This one gives us 5 sentences and we have to rearrange them. Now, as we all know that we will use the logic of keywords to connect the sentences. So let's begin. So first sentence says Surabhi's Instagram profile. Now this is the first keyword. Now who's Surabhi? We don't know. Has 1.4 million followers. It is filled with pictures of her posting in different settings. So we only get Surabhi's Instagram profile as a keyword from this. In sentence number 2, it says in India. So India comes in. Reports suggest that WhatsApp, much more than Facebook or Twitter, is the primary tool for the dissemination of political communication. So we get a lot of keywords here. So we can clearly see WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter. We can see India. We can see primary tool for dissemination of political communication. So we get a clear view of the fact that this is talking about social media being used as a tool for political campaigning in India. So let's move on to the third sentence, which says political campaigns. This is related to the political communication that is being referred to in sentence 2. Pay social media companies. Again, we can relate to WhatsApp, Facebook and Twitter, which is mentioned in sentence number 2, to promote their content. Content is the political communication content that is mentioned in sentence number 2. So we can see very clearly that sentence 2 and 3 are related, and sentence 2 should logically come after sentence 3, because sentence 3 talks about the social media companies and sentence 2 elaborates the names of the companies that is being referred to in sentence number 3. So therefore Q, which is sentence number 2, should come after R. So this is something we can understand. Let's move on to sentence number 4, which says political advertising. Now political advertising again connects back to political campaigns. It connects to political communication. So 4 is related to 3 and 2. Political advertising on social media comes in many forms and remains under-examined in India. Now again we see India here. So this one is also connected to 2 and 3 because it talks about political advertising. And we notice that sentence number 4 brings in the concept of political advertising, and it also brings in the concept of social media, both. So sentence 3 elaborates on the fact that political campaigns pay the social media companies. Now social media companies comes from social media and not vice versa. So therefore S should come before R and Q. It is related to both R and Q, but it should come before R and Q. So we understand that here. And then the last one, social media influencers. Now here is a term, social media influencers. Now what are social media influencers? Social media influencers are people who are used by companies or political parties as brand ambassadors to spread their message on social media. So this is a new term that has come in, social media influencers. They're brand ambassadors or representatives of companies, of political parties who campaign for these parties or companies on the social media platforms. And Surabhi's Instagram profile. So Surabhi is in most probably Surabhi is a social media influencer that is referred to in sentence number 5. So that is a implicit connect that we can understand, because Surabhi is mentioned as an example of a social media influencer. So therefore T should come after T. So we can clearly see SRQ as a set and TNP as a set. Now let's try and connect either Q and T or S and T. Let's see. So if I look at Q and T, Q says in India reports suggest that WhatsApp is more dominant social media platform, and T says that social media influencers are used for dissemination of content. So therefore T should come after Q. So the logical sequence that we find is SRQ TP, because the logic of social media influencers come in only after the concept of social media is communicated, which is done in Q. So Q elaborates on R, that is social media companies, and gives examples of social media companies, and T then introduces the term social media influencers who are used in social media on social media platforms. So T is connected to Q and Q is connected to R. So that is the connection that we are getting. So SRQTP is the correct option. So option D is the right choice.